Picture this. You're cruising down the highway at 40 miles per hour when suddenly a deer jumps out. You swerve hard to avoid it, and your car flips over. That's not a nightmare scenario, guys. That's what happened to real drivers in real cars during something called the Moose test. And what we discovered will make you think twice about what's sitting in your driveway right now. I'm talking about brand new SUVs trusted by millions of American families that turned into death traps the moment they had to make an emergency move. Luxury cars that cost more than most people's houses, but couldn't handle a simple swerve. And trucks built tough enough to haul a boat, but too dangerous to drive when it really counts. Stay with me because the #1 car on this list is probably parked in your neighbor's driveway right now. And after you see what happened during testing, you'll understand why some automotive engineers should be ashamed of themselves. Before we dive into these automotive disasters, let me explain what the hell a Moose test actually is, because this isn't some made-up YouTube stunt. The Moose test simulates what happens when you're driving along and suddenly have to swerve around an obstacle. Could be a deer, could be a kid chasing a ball, could be some idiot who just pulled out in front of you. The test puts a car through a high-speed lane change without hitting the brakes, just like you do in real life when there's no time to stop. Sounds simple, right? Just turn the wheel and get out of the way. But here's the thing. When engineers screw up the suspension, the stability control, or just basic physics, cars don't just miss the obstacle. They flip over. They spin out. They become uncontrollable missiles that'll take you and whoever's unlucky enough to be nearby straight to the morgue. This test has been around for decades, and it's saved countless lives by exposing dangerous cars before they kill people. But somehow in 2024, we're still seeing brand new vehicles that fail this basic safety requirement, and that should piss you off as much as it pisses me off. Let's start with number 17, and trust me, we're building up to some real doozies here. Now this one's a classic disaster that actually changed the entire automotive industry. Back in '97, Mercedes thought they could build a small car with big luxury. What they built instead was a rolling death trap. During the test at just 37 miles per hour, that's neighborhood speed, guys. This thing didn't just lose control. It didn't just slide. It flipped completely over like a damn turtle. The footage went viral before viral was even a thing, and Mercedes got roasted so hard they had to shut down production and completely redesign the car. But here's the thing. Mercedes actually did the right thing. They recalled every single car, spent millions fixing the problem, and made electronic stability control standard across their entire lineup. That's how a real company handles a safety crisis. Number 16, Toyota Hilux. The Hilux has a reputation for being tougher than a $2 steak, but apparently that doesn't include staying upright during an emergency. At 37 miles per hour, this truck nearly tipped over despite having all the modern safety gadgets. The problem? The engineers got so focused on making it grip the road that they forgot about physics. When you've got a high center of gravity and tires that grip too well, something's got to give. And what gave was the truck's stability. The inside wheels lifted off the ground like it was auditioning for a monster truck show. Number 15, Toyota RAV4 Prime. Here's where things get really concerning, because we're talking about a 2020 model, practically brand new. This hybrid SUV that Toyota markets to families completely lost its mind during the test. At 39 miles per hour, it understeered straight into the cones. Then the rear end snapped out so violently it looked like the car was having a seizure. But the worst part? The front tire nearly came off the rim. Imagine that happening on the interstate next to a concrete barrier. This wasn't driver error, guys. This was professional test drivers who knew exactly what was coming, and the car still tried to kill them. Number 14, Suzuki Jimny. The Jimny is basically a toy truck that thinks it's a real SUV. With its boxy shape and high center of gravity, it was never going to win any handling awards. But the test results were still embarrassing. At 47 miles per hour, it scattered cones like a bowling ball hitting pins. The chunky off-road tires that make it great for climbing rocks made it absolutely terrible on pavement. They finally got it to pass at 42 miles per hour, which is pathetic for a modern vehicle. Number 13, Volvo C40. This one really burns my ass because Volvo built their entire reputation on safety. The C40 is their fancy electric crossover with premium everything, including Pirelli performance tires that cost more than most people spend on groceries in a month. But when it came time to actually perform, this Swedish safety machine couldn't stay in its lane at 48 miles per hour. It just pushed straight through the course like the steering wheel was connected to nothing. For a car that costs this much and comes from a company that never shuts up about safety, this is inexcusable. Now we're getting into the really scary stuff, guys. These aren't just disappointing. These are genuinely dangerous vehicles that could get you killed. Number 12, Ford Ranger. The Ranger was supposed to be Ford's answer to reliable, safe truck transportation. Instead, it turned into a handling nightmare that couldn't stay composed even under 43 miles per hour. This truck was designed to haul your boat, tow your trailer, and handle rough roads. But when it came to dodging an obstacle, you know, the kind of thing that happens in real life, it fell apart like a house of cards. In an actual emergency, the sloppy response could send you straight into a ditch or oncoming traffic. Number 11, Nissan Kicks. Here's where corporate greed nearly gets people killed. During testing, this compact SUV nearly flipped over at just 40 miles per hour. The body leaned so hard it looked ready to roll, and you could see the terror on the test driver's face. But here's the kicker, and this should make you furious. Some versions of this car don't even have electronic stability control. In 2018, Nissan was literally selling cars without basic safety equipment to save a few bucks. The versions with stability control passed the test just fine, but the ones without it were death traps. Number 10, Ford Mustang Mach-E. This is Ford's big electric SUV that's supposed to compete with Tesla. It's got a low-mounted battery pack for better stability and all-wheel drive for better control. On paper, it should cruise through this test. Instead, it was the only electric SUV in its comparison group that completely lost control. While the Tesla Model Y, Hyundai Ioniq 5, and others handled the test with ease, the Mach-E couldn't keep it together above 42 miles per hour. The electronic stability control just sat there like a lazy security guard, too slow to react when things went sideways. For a company that's been building cars for over a century, this is embarrassing. Number 9, Citroën C3 Aircross. This French crossover might look cute and practical, but it's a disaster waiting to happen. At 45 miles per hour, it lost grip and stability so badly that it never recovered. The tires couldn't hold the line, and the stability control system was about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. But here's what really pisses me off. This car scored 0 stars in safety ratings in some markets. 0! And they were still selling it to families. The version built in Brazil only had 2 airbags. 2! In 2017. That's not just cutting corners. That's criminal negligence. Number 8, Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now we're talking about a full-size SUV that millions of American families trust with their lives. And at 38 miles per hour, barely faster than a school zone, this thing lifted its inside wheels off the ground. Push it just 1 mile per hour faster, and it rolled over completely. Let that sink in for a minute. A family SUV that rolls over at 39 miles per hour during an emergency maneuver. If that doesn't scare the hell out of you, you're not paying attention. Size doesn't mean safety, and this Jeep proved it in the worst possible way. Number 7, Toyota RAV4. Here's another one that should make you lose a sleep. The RAV4 is one of America's best-selling SUVs, trusted by millions of families. But in 2019, it was a rolling disaster. The Swedish testers called its behavior dangerous, and they weren't exaggerating. At just 42 miles per hour, this family hauler leaned onto 2 wheels like it was trying to set a world record for the longest wheelie. For a vehicle that soccer moms use to drive their kids to practice, that's absolutely terrifying. The good news? Toyota actually fixed it with a software update that made the stability control faster and more aggressive. The bad news? How many people got hurt before they figured it out? Number 6, BMW M4 Competition. This one really gets under my skin because BMW's M division is supposed to represent the pinnacle of driving performance. These are the cars that enthusiasts dream about, the machines that are supposed to handle like they're on rails. Instead, the M4 Competition snapped into oversteer at the worst possible moment. sliding sideways like it was trying to drift through the test course. Most modern cars are programmed to understeer safely in emergencies. Not the M4. It decided to go sideways when going sideways could get you killed. For a car that costs more than most people's annual salary, this is inexcusable. BMW tuned this car for the track, but forgot that people actually drive these things on public roads where mistakes kill people. Number 5, Škoda Superb. The Škoda Superb looks like a sensible family sedan, but under pressure, it turns into a tail-happy nightmare. During the test, the rear end snapped out so violently that the driver was fighting for control from the first swerve. At 42.3 miles per hour, things got even worse. The back end swung around like a pendulum, forcing the driver into frantic corrections just to keep the car pointing forward. By 44.7 miles per hour, it was hopeless, wiping out cones and showing the kind of dangerous oversteer that kills people. Meanwhile, a Peugeot 508 breezed through the same test at 48.5 miles per hour, and a Mercedes C-Class wagon stayed composed at 46 miles per hour. Their stability systems work. Škoda's doesn't. Number 4, Volkswagen Passat GTE. The Passat performed just as poorly as its Škoda cousin, which makes sense since they're basically the same car underneath. As speeds picked up, this German sedan slid straight into oversteer and lost control faster than you could say Autobahn. At 48 miles per hour, the rear snapped loose with a vengeance, and the driver ended up smashing cones while fighting to save it. This isn't just embarrassing for Volkswagen, it's dangerous for anyone who bought one thinking they were getting German engineering quality. The fact that they had to slow down to 45 miles per hour just to complete the test without hitting anything shows how fundamentally flawed this car's dynamics are. Now we're into the really scary territory, guys. These aren't just bad cars, these are vehicles that could genuinely kill you and your family. Number 3, Mazda CX-30. The CX-30 might look sleek and modern, but it's riding on some of the worst tires you can imagine. Bridgestone Turanza EL440S that have received below-average ratings from customers who actually drive on them. During the test, the rear end swung out during quick turns, making it nearly impossible for even professional drivers to maintain control. It knocked over cones while trying to complete the course, and even when they slowed it down to 45 miles per hour, the rear still felt loose and unpredictable. Here's the thing that really pisses me off. Mazda knew these tires were garbage, but they put them on the car anyway to save money. When you're cutting corners on the one thing that connects your car to the road, you're playing Russian roulette with people's lives. Number 2, Kia Sportage Plug-in Hybrid. This is a 2023 model, guys. Brand new, fresh off the assembly line, and it's a complete disaster. On its first run at 48 miles per hour, this SUV was all over the place like a drunk driver. It struck cones in every part of the emergency lane change, bouncing its rear end into a small army of orange markers. The car stayed upright, but it couldn't stay between the lines to save its life. Even dropping the speed didn't help much. Massive understeer kicked in halfway through the swerve, wiping out more cones as the driver tried desperately to wrestle it back on course. The best this modern SUV could manage was 44 miles per hour, and even then it wasn't pretty. Meanwhile, its cousin, the Hyundai Tucson, managed a clean run at 46 miles per hour. Same platform, same basic engineering, but somehow Kia screwed it up. Number 1, Jeep Renegade, the absolute worst. And here we are, guys. The absolute worst performer in emergency handling, and it's a vehicle that thousands of Americans drive every single day. The Jeep Renegade with air suspension is quite literally a bouncing ball on wheels. During the test, it felt more like a basketball than a vehicle designed to transport human beings safely. At 48 miles per hour, it understeered straight into the cones and refused to snap back into its lane. Even dropping to 45 miles per hour didn't help. It wasn't until they got down to a pathetic 44 miles per hour that it finally made it through without destroying the course. The main culprit is that air suspension system that Jeep thought would make the ride more comfortable. Instead, it made the vehicle so bouncy and unstable that it's genuinely dangerous in an emergency. Compared to vehicles like the Mercedes ML, which uses active dampening to control bounce, the Renegade's setup is amateur hour. Here's what really gets me. Drivers with the standard coil suspension might avoid this mess entirely, but Jeep is still selling the air suspension version to unsuspecting customers who think they're getting a premium feature. What they're actually getting is a safety hazard. Now here's what really pisses me off about all of this. We're not talking about cars from the 1970s when safety was an afterthought. Most of these vehicles are from the last decade, with some being brand new for 2023. These manufacturers have access to computer simulations, advanced testing facilities, and decades of safety research. There's no excuse for putting a car on the market that can't handle a basic emergency maneuver without trying to kill its occupants. And yet here we are, with luxury brands like BMW and Volvo failing basic safety tests, family-friendly SUVs showing dangerous instability, and manufacturers like Nissan literally selling cars without electronic stability control to save a few bucks. So what does this mean for you as a car buyer? First, don't trust the marketing. When Toyota tells you the RAV4 is perfect for families, remember that the 2019 model nearly flipped over during emergency testing. When BMW brags about ultimate driving machines, remember that the M4 can't handle an emergency swerve without going sideways. Second, do your homework. Traditional safety ratings focus on what happens when you crash, not whether you can avoid the crash in the first place. The Moose test results aren't part of those 5-star safety ratings you see in commercials, but they should be just as important to you and your family. Third, understand that newer doesn't always mean safer. Some of these 2020-plus vehicles perform worse than cars from a decade ago. The Kia Sportage plug-in hybrid is a 2023 model that can barely handle 44 miles per hour in an emergency, while older vehicles with simpler systems sometimes do better. And here's something that should really concern you. If you own one of these vehicles, especially the ones with software-fixable problems like the Toyota RAV4, make damn sure you're getting any safety updates from the manufacturer. Toyota proved that software can fix these problems, but only if you actually install the updates. What really burns my ass is how differently these manufacturers responded when their cars failed. Mercedes back in 1997 showed how it should be done. They recalled every A-Class, shut down production, spent millions re-engineering the car, and made electronic stability control standard across their entire lineup. That's how a responsible company handles a safety crisis. Toyota, when their 2019 RAV4 got exposed, quickly developed software fixes and pushed them out to customers. Problem solved, lives saved. But look at companies like Volkswagen and Skoda. Their cars failed just as badly, but where are the fixes? Where are the recalls? Where's the accountability? These companies are still selling these vehicles to unsuspecting customers who have no idea they're driving potential death traps. And don't get me started on Jeep. They know the Renegade's air suspension is dangerous, but they're still selling it. They could fix it, they could recall it, they could at least warn people. Instead, they're letting families drive around in vehicles that handle like bouncing balls. Here's what really pisses me off about this whole situation. Where the hell are the regulators? We've got government agencies that are supposed to protect consumers, but they're focused on the wrong things. They'll spend millions testing what happens when cars crash into barriers at specific speeds, but they won't test whether cars can avoid crashes in the first place. The Moose test isn't part of any official safety rating in America, even though it's arguably more important than most crash tests. And the global inconsistencies are criminal. Nissan sells the Kicks without electronic stability control in some markets, but includes it in others. Citroën builds the C3 Aircross with only 2 airbags in Brazil, but more safety equipment in Europe. These companies are literally deciding that some people's lives are worth less than others based on where they live. Here's something that should really concern you. Look at how many hybrid and electric vehicles made this list. The Toyota RAV4 Prime, Volvo C40, Ford Mustang Mach-E, Kia Sportage plug-in hybrid, Volkswagen Passat GTE, and Skoda Superb all failed. That's not a coincidence, guys. These manufacturers are so focused on electrification and fuel economy that they're forgetting basic vehicle dynamics. They're adding heavy battery packs, complex hybrid systems, and new technologies without properly integrating them with the car's handling characteristics. The Ford Mach-E is a perfect example, It's got a low-mounted battery pack that should improve stability, all-wheel drive for better control, and it's from a company that's been building cars for over a century. But when it came time to perform, it was the only electric SUV in its comparison group that completely lost control. That tells me Ford's engineers were so busy figuring out how to make an electric Mustang that they forgot how to make it safe. The BMW M4 failure really highlights a dangerous trend in the automotive industry. These performance-oriented vehicles are being tuned for track use, but people drive them on public roads where track-focused handling can get you killed. Most modern cars are programmed to understeer in emergencies because understeer is predictable and manageable. You can feel it happening, you can correct for it, and even if you slide off the road, you're probably going straight into a ditch rather than spinning into oncoming traffic. But the M4 is tuned to oversteer, to rotate, to be exciting on a racetrack. That's great when you're at Laguna Seca with runoff areas and safety barriers. It's deadly when you're on I-95 with concrete barriers and 18-wheelers. BMW needs to decide whether they're building track cars or street cars, because right now they're building vehicles that are dangerous for normal drivers in emergency situations. First, we need mandatory emergency handling tests as part of official safety ratings. The Moose test or something similar should be required before any car can be sold to the public. If a vehicle can't handle a basic emergency maneuver without losing control, it shouldn't be on the road. Second, we need global safety standards. It's 2024. There's no excuse for selling cars without electronic stability control anywhere in the world. Every vehicle should have the same basic safety equipment, regardless of where it's sold or how much it costs. Third, manufacturers need to be held accountable for safety failures discovered after launch. Toyota showed it can be done with software updates, but there needs to be legal requirements to fix known safety problems, not just voluntary recalls when companies feel like it. And finally, we need better integration between traditional automotive engineering and new technologies. These hybrid and electric vehicles aren't just regular cars with different powertrains. They're fundamentally different machines that need to be engineered as complete systems, not just regular cars with batteries bolted on. Look, guys, I'm not trying to scare you away from buying cars, but I am trying to make you smarter consumers who understand that marketing bullshit and safety ratings don't tell the whole story. When you're shopping for your next vehicle, especially if you've got family members riding with you, don't just look at crash test ratings and fuel economy. Find out how the car handles in emergency situations. Look up Moose test results, ask the dealer about electronic stability control, and make sure it's actually turned on and working properly. And if you currently own one of the vehicles on this list, especially the ones with known software fixes available, get to your dealer and make sure you've got the latest updates. Your life and your family's lives could literally depend on it. The automotive industry has the technology and knowledge to build safe vehicles. The fact that they're still putting dangerous cars on the market is a choice, not an accident. And as consumers, we need to hold them accountable for that choice. The Moose test doesn't lie, guys. It strips away all the marketing bullshit, all the fancy features, and all the brand prestige to reveal one simple truth. Can this car keep you alive when it matters most? For these 17 vehicles, the answer is a terrifying no. And that should piss you off as much as it pisses me off. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know before, smash that like button and subscribe for more content that cuts through the automotive industry's BS. And drop a comment below. Which one of these failures shocked you the most? Did you know your car might be a death trap in an emergency? Stay safe out there, and remember, when it comes to your family's safety, never trust the marketing. Trust the testing.